Wahoo! Mario Kart, one of the most well-known and beloved racing games out there, starting in 1992 with Super Mario Kart and still going strong with Mario Kart 8, which, fun fact, is actually the highest-selling Mario game ever, which is kinda crazy to think about. The series has had so many entries over the years, and as a result, tons of nostalgia is associated with each one. There are people who are still playing Mario Kart 64, Double Dash, Wii, DS, and 7, despite the fact that 8 is better than all of them, don't at me. However, not all Mario Karts are born equal. Some are more popular than others. Does anybody remember the Mario Kart arcade game? Not this one. This one. Yeah, I didn't think so. And one of the less popular Mario Kart games, despite having a nostalgic audience for it, seems to be Mario Kart Super Circuit. Wahoo! Mario Kart Super Circuit was first unveiled at Space World 2000, alongside the announcement of Nintendo's new handheld, the Game Boy Advance, called the GBA for short. The GBA was 32 bits, which meant that it was able to do some very primitive 3D, one of the first handhelds to do so. So, probably to show this off, they decided to make a Mario Kart game for it. I mean, it's not like they could have done it on their previous handhelds. I stand corrected. They wouldn't have been able to do it well. Super Circuit was released shortly after the GBA's launch in mid-2001 and was the first portable Mario Kart game. It's also the only Mario Kart to be developed by Intelligent Systems, who you might know best for the Paper Mario series. The game, as you'd expect from a Nintendo game, was released to critical acclaim when it first came out, but reception has become more critical over the years, with it being considered one of the series' weaker entries. But, like I said, there are still many people nostalgic for this game. Some consider it to be one of the best Mario Karts. So that's why today we're going to play Super Circuit to see if it's aged well, or if it's best if it belongs in the past. Did you know that 97.1% of you aren't subscribed? Maybe you should. I'd really like it if you did. And without further ado, back into the video. Super Circuit plays very differently from its predecessor Mario Kart 64. In fact, it takes more inspiration from Super Mario Kart, most likely due to the weaker hardware of the GBA. I'd go more in depth on what I mean, but just look at them. The only real difference is that the player gets power-ups via item boxes and not panels like in that game. One of the most important things about a racing game is how it controls. You're not going to have a fun time if the vehicles aren't fun to play as. And thankfully, Super Circuit controls pretty well. There are some turns that are way too tight for your kart to make on some of the tracks, but that's more of an issue with the tracks themselves rather than the karts. Because outside of these tight turns, the game feels great to play. My only real complaint, much like Super Mario Kart, is the drifting. Instead of helping you get around corners faster, I actually found myself going off the road whenever I drift, which is the exact opposite of what you want it to do. So whenever I got on a tight turn, I just keep letting on and off the gas instead. Another minor gripe I had with Super Circuit was the AI. I decided to play the game on 50cc, the easiest difficulty. I know, I am such a gamer. But even on that, if I made only one or two mistakes, I could fall behind and have a pretty hard time catching up. The AI just doesn't play fair, just like the AI in Super Mario Kart. And just like in that game, it was always the same two characters on my ass, Bowser and Donkey Kong. DK was more of an issue though. I swear I hate that monkey. Don't take that out of context. Spinning out is also super annoying. It happens just after getting hit by a hazard, such as a shell or fireball. It locks the player in place as they do a little boogie before doing a full 180, and it takes way too long to go through it. Getting the rocket start is also pretty hard to do. I know it's because it's a move that only skilled players should be able to do, but there were so many times where I thought I had the timing right, but I just didn't. I only got it right once or twice. But enough about the negatives of Super Circuit, let's move on to the positives. First on the list is, everything else. Starting with the superficial, I really like the way this game looks. It goes for a look very reminiscent of Mario Kart 64, but with a more cartoonish look to the sprites as opposed to the more 3D looking ones in 64. The soundtrack is also very nice. I thought some of the music was forgettable, but overall found it to be a really good OST, complete with that sweet GBA sound font. The tracks, as you'd expect from a Mario Kart, are also really great. They try to have some unique mechanics to each theme, but they're mostly very minor things, like the fireballs and the Bowser tracks, an ice track with slippier handling, these little huts with Shy Guys inside of them during one of the desert races, or these rain puddles in this rainy version of the generic circuit tracks that always need to be in every Mario Kart. As I said earlier, I thought some of the turns were a bit too tight, but they're overall pretty solid. I can't think of any bad ones besides Rainbow Road. It is way too easy to fall off the track, and it's a pretty sad whimper for this otherwise great game to go out on. Now for the thing that makes Mario Kart, it's the power-ups. They're alright. Due to these tracks having plenty of tight turns, I found the mushrooms to be more of a nuisance than useful. The bananas also didn't do jack for me. It was the shells that I found to be the most fun to use. Unlike later Mario Karts, it's way easier to hit your target with a green shell, most likely due to the karts being slower and the more basic track design. Red shells were also pretty useful, as they always are. My personal favorite was getting 3 shells, since it gives you a shield, you can also get another power-up, and it still has the usefulness of a shell. Overall, I had a really great time with Mario Kart Super Circuit, which was a bit of a surprise for me. Seeing that the game was heavily based on Super Mario Kart initially made me a little worried. Not that the original Mario Kart is a bad game, but it has definitely shown its age with time. And while it does have some of the issues that Super Mario Kart has, it's a far more polished and fun experience. Speaking of Super Mario Kart, one thing I forgot to mention is that if you 100% all of the cups in the game, you actually unlock all of the cups from Super Mario Kart. Really wearing their inspiration on their sleeve. But yeah, that's it for the review. Let me know in the comments if you're interested in having me review more Mario Kart games. More specifically, the ones I haven't had the chance to play. I think it'd be fun. So yeah, I would recommend Super Circuit. Not as your only Mario Kart, there are far better games in the series you need to try, but I think you'll still have a fun time with it. Unless you're playing it on an actual GBA. Like I said, you cannot see shit on this screen.